Welcome to the Deep Dives. Today, we're focusing on something, well, pretty crucial if you're thinking about visiting Amsterdam, or maybe you're just curious about it. We're looking at what our sources actually say about safety there, especially for visitors, for tourists like you might be. We've gathered quite a bit of articles, official guides, insights from expats living the life there, and even some, real talk from online forums.
Yeah, and our aim here really is to help you sift through all that information. We want to look at the reality behind maybe some common ideas you've heard and, well, basically give you the key things you need to know so you can explore Amsterdam feeling confident.
Exactly, because, you might have heard different things. Is it that super relaxed, tolerant place? Or are there some other issues hidden beneath the surface? Let's get into the material and see what it suggests.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. Amsterdam's safety reputation. How does the perception line up with, say, the data we've got?
Well, some of the numbers we found, they paint a pretty positive picture initially. Like, if you look back at the 2019 Safe City Index, Amsterdam ranked really high, fourth safest in the world. And there's more recent perception data from just this May, actually, showing visitors see the crime index as low, around 26, and the safety index high, over 73. It's interesting how people generally perceive things like violent crime, break-ins, car theft, all seen as low or very low.
And that's broadly true. Violent crime is low compared to many big cities worldwide. But, and this is important, the sources also really highlight that there are specific urban safety issues. And these tend to hit tourists harder. So while violent crime perception is low, there's some data suggesting a moderate increase in general crime perception over the last 5 years or so. And the police themselves note that things like robbery, pickpocketing, they often happen to visitors because, well, tourists can be easily distracted.
Okay, distracted. Let's unpack that. What are
Hmm.
some of the specific things tourists need to watch out for? Let's start with scams.
Right. Scams. There are a few that pop up again and again in the sources. One is the fake police officer routine. Someone might approach you, maybe flash a dodgy badge, ask about drugs or fake money, and then want to search your wallet or bag.
Okay, so what's the advice there?
The clear message is real Dutch police are very unlikely to do random searches like that on the street, especially targeting tourists. This scam sometimes taps into old worries about counterfeit euros. Apparently, there was a surge of fake 100 euro notes back in 2004, and some shops might still be hesitant with big bills. You don't need to be an expert, but just knowing the basics, like real euros feel crisp, check the watermark against light, see the hologram shift, it can help you spot a really obvious fake.
Got it. What else? Taxis seem to be mentioned a lot, too.
Ah, yes, taxis, especially those waiting right outside the main airport, Schiphol. There was one story we found warning that some aren't just overcharging, they could be planning to drive you somewhere remote to rob you. That's quite serious. But even with regulated ones, the sources often describe drivers refusing to use the meter, charging huge flat fees, or just inventing fares.
Like how much?
Well, anecdotes mention things like 40 euros, sometimes even more, just to get from the airport into the city center. Seems quite common, unfortunately.
Wow. So what's the takeaway then?
It seems pretty clear from the material, doesn't it? Amsterdam has fantastic public transport, trains, trams, buses. They're efficient, affordable, so why take the gamble on a potentially dodgy and definitely expensive taxi, especially from the airport or station?
Good point. Okay, another one mentioned is the white van scam. What's that?
Yeah, this one sounds almost like something out of a movie. Basically, guys in a white van might pull up, ask you for directions, maybe claim they work for a big electronics brand like Bose. Then they offer you these amazing deals on speakers or headphones. You pay cash.
And the box is empty.
Exactly. You get home, open it up, nothing inside. Classic bait and switch.
Okay. And any other sort of minor traps?
Yeah, a few smaller things. Souvenir shops maybe slipping you fake notes in your change. One person mentioned getting a fake 20 euro bill after being kind of run around the shop. Also, be wary of people hanging around stations offering to guide you to your hotel. They might lead you somewhere else entirely. Oh, and beggars. The advice across the board is pretty consistent. Just say no firmly and walk on. These are, fairly standard scams you might find in any tourist hotspot, but they're definitely active in Amsterdam.
And what about accommodation? Any scams there?
Oh, definitely. This seems to be a big one, especially targeting short-term rentals online, and Craigslist, Gumtree, those kinds of places. Scammers post fake listings, often really nice places at suspiciously low prices.
What are the red flags?
Poor English in the ad. Photos that look too perfect, maybe sourced from elsewhere. Sometimes poorly designed websites with URLs very close to legitimate ones. A big giveaway is if you asked to see the place first or have a friend check it out and they refuse or make excuses. That's usually a sign it's fake. Using the community forums on the listing sites themselves can sometimes help spot known scams too.
Okay, so that covers scams.
Yep.
Now let's get into actual crime that a visitor might face. This is where it gets interesting, right?
Right, and the number one issue, overwhelmingly mentioned in almost every source, is bike theft.
Bike theft, it sounds like it's almost expected.
Pretty much. Some expats even call it an unofficial Amsterdam initiation, a rite of passage. Officially, over 60,000 bikes are reported stolen each year, but everyone agrees the real number is way higher because lots of people don't bother reporting it. It's the biggest crime issue visitors might encounter, especially if they rent or buy a bike.
Wow. Okay, so if you do get a bike, how do you stop it becoming a statistic? The sources must have tips.
Oh yeah, very practical stuff. Rule 1. Always use 2 locks and make them different types. Get at least one really good quality steel chain lock. The advice is spend decent money on it, like 30 or more. The lock should be worth more than the effort to break it.
Right.
Avoid those simple U-shaped locks. Apparently, they're easier to break. And crucially, always lock the frame of your bike, not just the wheel, to something solid. A proper bike rack, a lamp post.
Don't just lock 2 bikes together.
No, definitely not. They can just lift both. Use the official secured bike parks if you can. Many are free for the first 24 hours and much safer. Also, be aware that certain bikes get targeted more, the classic Dutch Omafiets or grandpa bikes, brand new shiny ones, or ones with lots of accessories.
Makes sense.
And one simple thing, know your bike's frame number. Write it down. You'll need it if it does get stolen and you report it.
Okay, 2 locks, lock the frame, use bike parks. Got it. What's next after bike theft?
Pickpocketing, another very common one, especially in summer and anywhere it gets crowded.
Where are the main hot spots for that?
The sources point to the usual suspects. Central Station, naturally. Busy shopping streets like Damrak and Calverstraat. And definitely on public transport, trams, buses, metros, particularly when you're getting on or off, that moment of confusion. Also hotel lobbies, busy restaurants, bars, anywhere tourists gather, really. Thieves, no tourists, often carry cash and might be, again, distracted looking at maps or sites.
And they use distraction techniques here too, right?
Absolutely. Often working in pairs or small groups. One person might distract you asking for directions when there's an info booth right there, pointing at something supposedly on your shirt. Or causing a commotion like bumping into you hard, or even pretending to stumble and fall just as you're getting off a tram.
Ah, the stumble?
Yeah, while you're focused on them or helping them up, their partner is dipping into your pocket or bag.
We read that detailed story, didn't we? About the person on the tram.
Yes, that was a really vivid account. They felt a push from behind. The person was immediately like, oh, sorry, using a bag maybe to block the view. The theft itself was so quick, so smooth, they felt nothing. Only realized the wallet was gone later.
But they got it back. Sorta.
Amazingly, yeah. They found police quickly, and because they had an air tag in the wallet, the police tracked it. They actually recovered the physical wallet. Cash gone, of course. And the thief had just melted back into the crowd. Shows how fast they operate.
That really highlights it. So prevention tips against pickpockets. What did the sources recommend?
Pretty standard advice, but crucial. Keep your bag close, zipped or fastened, right in front of you in crowds, maybe with your arm across it. Don't flash lots of cash or use a huge wallet that makes an obvious bulge. Never leave your bag unattended, not even for a second on the back of a chair in a cafe. Use inside pockets, preferably zippered ones, for your absolute valuables, passport, main cards, bulk of cash. And that story really drives home. Backpacks on crowded trams or buses, not the place for your wallet or phone. Wear it on your front if you must.
So it sounds like awareness is key, trusting your gut feeling.
Absolutely. That came up a lot. If someone crowds you unnecessarily, bumps into you, any physical contact that feels off, instantly think, where are my valuables? Don't worry about seeming rude by checking your pockets or clutching your bag. Better safe than sorry. Although the best defense is securing everything before you even step onto that crowded tram or walk into that busy area.
Okay, so we know the main risks. Doesn't matter where in the city you are.
Yeah.
Are some neighborhoods generally safer for visitors than others?
Yeah, the sources do suggest some differences based on expat experiences and some stats. Areas like Oud quite upscale, near Vondel Park, are seen as very safe. Lots of eyes on the street, The Jordan, even though it's central, it still has that tight-knit community vibe. People look out for each other. That helps deter petty crime. And then areas like Amsterdam Nord, across the water, or IJsberg, which is newer, these are often mentioned as having strong communities and lower rates of the kinds of crime that typically affect tourists. Very residential, generally secure.
Okay. And on the flip side, areas where you need to be a bit more switched on.
Well, the red light district to Wallen, it's complicated. It's actually heavily policed. It's busy 24/7. It's well lit. So paradoxically, some sources say street crime, like muggings, is lower there than some other central spots. But, and it's a big but, it's also flagged as arguably the riskiest area for tourists, specifically because of pickpocketing. The sheer number of people, the party atmosphere, especially late at night, it's prime territory for thieves. And the area is right around Central Station. Big transit hub, lots of people coming and going, often confused or distracted. Classic pickpocketing zone, extra care needed there, especially after dark, perhaps.
What about further out? Some neighborhoods have rougher reputations, don't they?
Yes, places like New West or Amsterdam Zuidoost, particularly the Bijlmer area, are mentioned as having higher crime rates overall. But the sources suggest this is mostly things like burglary related to social housing issues, lower incomes, that kind of thing. Not typically random violence targeting tourists. And honestly, as a visitor, you're pretty unlikely to just wander into the heart of Zuidoost by accident. Even the Bijlmer, despite its history, is described now as being generally safe, even interesting to visit during the daytime.
Okay, so let's pull together some practical tips then. How can you navigate the city like a savvy local, but stay safe? What did the expat advice suggest?
Well, first and foremost, trust your instincts. That came up again and again. If a situation feels wrong, it probably is. Get out of there. And remember, most Dutch people are generally friendly and willing to help if you genuinely need directions or assistance. Don't be afraid to ask someone who looks like a local or shop staff. For getting around, if you're nervous about bike theft right away, maybe start with a bike sharing scheme for a day or two. Get the feel for it. And basic traffic sense. Stay on sidewalks when walking, look both ways, and check for bikes and trams. They drive on the right, remember, and cyclists often have priority.
What about using ATMs? Any specific advice there?
Just be aware of your surroundings. Is anyone watching you too closely? Cover your PIN when you type it in. And if possible, especially at night, try to use ATMs inside a bank lobby rather than one directly on the street. Just feels a bit more secure.
Right. And the canals, beautiful, but potentially hazardous?
Yeah. Definitely something to be aware of. They look lovely, but falling in is no joke. The water's often cold, the sides can be steep and hard to climb out of, so just be mindful when you're walking near the edge, especially if you've had a drink or two or if it's crowded. Oh, and don't pee in the canals. It's illegal. Use the public loose.
Good to know. What if someone does fall in?
The advice is shout for help immediately. Call 111, the emergency number, and look around for a life buoy or anything that floats to throw to them. Apparently, there are even specialist recovery divers you can hire if you drop, like, your phone or keys in a canal, for a fee, obviously.
Oh, okay. Good to know. And emergency contacts.
Crucial one, 112. That's the pan-European emergency number for police, fire, or ambulance. Operators generally speak English. If it's not an emergency, say, you need to report a theft after the fact, the number is 0900 8844. Or if you're calling from a non-Dutch phone, it's +31 343 578 844. The sources generally describe Dutch police as professional and helpful to tourists. You'll also see these uniformed officials, called handhavers, in blue. They patrol busy areas, deal with minor infractions, but can also help with directions and basic issues, freeing up the main police force.
What about walking around at night? Is it generally safe?
The perception data suggests people feel quite safe walking alone at night. Yeah, high safety rating there. But common sense applies, like anywhere. If you're in an area you don't know well, stick to streets that are well lit and have other people around. Avoid deserted alleyways or parks late at night.
And phone safety, beyond pickpocketing.
Know your phone's IMEI number, that unique identifier. Have a Find My Phone app installed and know how to use it. Report a theft immediately to the police and your provider. And one specific warning that came up. Be careful about phone snatching. Someone on a bike or scooter riding past and grabbing it right out of your hand while you're using it. So be aware when you're walking and texting or talking.
Okay, that's a lot of practical stuff. Before we wrap up, let's just touch on a couple of those bigger picture policy things mentioned in the sources, because they do form part of the context, don't they? Like the famous Dutch approach to drugs and prostitution.
Exactly. And it's important to understand how the sources present this. Amsterdam's pragmatic approach, tolerating soft drug sales and licensed coffee shops, Regulating prostitution in the red light district is world famous. The material generally suggests that these regulated spaces themselves aren't typically dangerous for visitors just walking through. Drug-related violence within the coffee shops, for example, is rare. However, the sources also really dig into the ongoing debates and challenges around these policies. There's the backdoor problem with the coffee shops. They can legally sell cannabis, but cultivating it and supplying the shops remains largely illegal. This creates a link to organized crime.
Right, that sounds like a contradiction.
It is, and some sources connect this wider drug trade to serious issues like money laundering, huge sums mentioned, like 16 billion a year, and even high-profile violence, referencing things like the murder of journalist Peter Rod de Vries or threats against politicians, leading some experts quoted to call the Netherlands a narco-state 2.0.
Wow, strong words.
Yeah, and there's ongoing debate locally, like the mayor's proposals, sometimes opposed by the council, about potentially banning tourists from coffee shops to curb drug tourism or trials for legally regulated cannabis cultivation. We're just presenting what the sources report here, impartially. There are clearly differing views on whether the tolerance policy ultimately enhances safety or inadvertently fuels criminality behind the scenes.
So for a visitor, the main takeaway is probably stick to the regulated places if you choose to engage, and definitely steer clear of street dealers.
Precisely. Street dealers, often offering hard drugs, operate completely outside any regulation, and interacting with them is inherently risky.
And there was also mention of a youth crime prevention program.
Yes, briefly. One source discussed a critical report about a project called Top 400, aimed at young people aged 12-23 considered at high risk. Concerns were raised in that report about potential stigmatization, maybe over-criminalizing teenage behavior, using care services primarily for crime prevention goals, and ethical questions around using algorithms on minors. The mayor defended the project's aims, apparently, and there were plans for updated trials focusing more on privacy and ethics. It's just presented as an example, really, of the kind of complex social challenges the city is dealing with, as discussed in the source material.
Okay, and perceptions versus reality again.
Yeah, the sources acknowledge that official stats are one thing, but your personal feeling of safety can be different. That's clear from some of the online forum comments we saw. And it reinforces that idea of community awareness in neighborhoods where people look out for each other. That can be a really powerful safety factor, perhaps more so than just police presence alone.
Right, so let's try and synthesize all this for you, the listener. What's the bottom line? Amsterdam is, generally speaking, a safe city for you as a visitor. The stats back that up. It ranks highly globally, violent crime is low. The main risks you're likely to face are really about petty theft, pickpocketing, bike theft, and those specific scams that target tourists who let their guard down or seem distracted.
Exactly. And our goal here wasn't to scare you off visiting Amsterdam at all. It's the opposite. It's about giving you the knowledge. Because if you're aware of the common scams, if you take those simple, sensible precautions with your phone, wallet, bag, bike, if you know which areas maybe need a bit more vigilance, especially at night, and if you know who to call if something does go wrong, then you massively reduce your chances of becoming a victim. And you can relax and really enjoy everything the city has to offer.
Well said. It's about being informed, not intimidated.
Before we finish, maybe just a final thought for you to ponder, something that connects these threads. In a city that's so famous for its tolerance, its openness, how do the people who run it and the people who live there constantly manage that tension? The tension between maintaining that unique identity and dealing with the very real, practical challenges of urban safety. Especially in places heavily impacted by tourism and tangled up with complex issues like the drug trade. It's a fascinating balancing act, and it's something that's clearly still evolving in Amsterdam today.
Awareness really is your best travel companion. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.